Why is it a cup? Why is it a cup? Oh, there. Cover should be working now.
No. second it's over. Help
My sheet. Try and position this. Mikey, just slide over to the right.
Tell me where to go, okay?
Sorry. Rabbi, Mikey, you gotta just move over and drop.
I have a big head?
Or if this guy moves, let's see.
You can see me?
Rabbi, this guy, ask this guy, Mikey.
What do you want?
Once they start, I'll go outside and test it. See. Rabbi, you're gonna be right in front of the camera.
So just a little bit of a Seder Hayoim. We have a Yunagunim to prepare ourselves for the real nigga, which is Eicha. Just a very quick story. I saw this the other day. There was a Yid that once came to the Baal Shem Tov and said that he's been spending years learning and davening, and he wants hasogis, he wants madregas, he wants giluyim. He doesn't have anything. He's a nobody. He's nothing. He has no clarity. He's nothing. And so Baal Shem Tov said to me, he said, Rav Yid, I don't know what you're talking about. That's the biggest giluy of all. It's the biggest madrega, the biggest Baal Ruach HaKodesh is someone that looks in the mirror and sees nothing. That's the avodah of Tisha B'Av. We're about to enter this Tekufa, this day of Tisha B'Av. It's a day of Dveikus, it's a day of Giluyim, it's a day of Ha'ar, it's a day of Ruach HaKodesh. But the Ruach HaKodesh that we're experiencing, the Giluyim that we're experiencing is Giluyim of Mamish Ayin V'Efes, that we're Mamish nothing. So every niggun that we sing, every word of tefillah that we say, every krechs that we make, it all is one kavanah, one inyan, to drill within our souls, within our hearts, the sense of hachna, the sense of humility, the sense of bittul. It's the biggest inyan, it's the biggest gilui. That's what we makasher ourselves. We should be zeicha. Now with that hachna, with that humility that we're beginning to enter into this time, we should be zeicha that all of our enemies should be nichna b'feneinu, all of our enemies should be destroyed before us. All klippas, all hestikvana should be eradicated. We should be zeicha that by this time next year, we already have a full year in Eretz Yisrael. We just go tzedek and every man on.
Amen.
Sponsoring Tisha B'Av. I don't have the list in front of me, but the Rebbeinu Shalom knows, you know, and Hashem shall bless each and every one of you with a full nechama on all levels, b'chlal, b'frat. B'ez Hashem, you should be zeicha to sponsor KMH's Tisha B'Av next year in Yerushalayim Kodesh. Amen. Joy will be there, we'll be with the guitar, for praying, we'll be very nice. It's expensive. Alright, so you know, in Eicha, can you hear me? In Eicha it says, that the Comforter is very far from us. That's what Golos is. We don't have that comfort. So Tisha B'Av is heavy. So let's do a little bit of a tikkun right now. Let's bring a little bit nechama. I know the Iker nechama is already tomorrow afternoon, but the Menachem, the Comforter, is Rishon B'Eichai. Rishon B'Eichai is the Menachem. So to understand and to appreciate what Tisha B'Av is, Be'emes and Pnimius, what our avodah is going forward the next 24 hours. Let's learn a little piece from the Zohar Kodesh. And this should be something, it's not just an intellectual idea and so on, and a little bit hadrach and avodah, but just the words of the Zohar Kodesh is nechama. You know, we all know the story when Yaakov Avinu was fighting and struggling and wrestling with the Malach of Esav, right? We all know. And so it says in Pasuk that V'yar ki lo yacholoi, that the Malach of Esav saw that he wasn't able to overtake Yaakov Avinu. V'yiga b'kaf yireicha. There was one place that it was able to damage, and that was the Gid Hanosha. The Gid Hanosha by the thigh. And despite the little injury, Yaakov Avinu was matzliach, he was able to overtake the Malach of Esav. So this is what it says in the Zohar Kodesh in Parshas Vayishlach. Begin to is bevar nash ramach shaifen. A human being is created with 248 limbs. Ramach ivar. L'kabel ramach b'kudin daraisa, corresponding to 248 positive mitzvahs. Din lumeva, and every single limb of our body is screaming to us, Bima Kaim mitzvah. The Isba Barna Shasa Gidin. And says the Zohar, we also know that the human being is created with 365 sinews. Shasa Gidin. Lumakabelei Hain Shasa Pukudin Deloit Lumeva. And corresponding to that are 365 negative mitzvahs that we're not allowed to do. And every single one of our sinews is screaming, don't do this, don't do that aver. Ulakabel Shasa Yoimei Shana. And says the Zohar, and so too, there are 365 sinews, corresponding to 365 averas, corresponding to 365 days of the year. The Nirmas behind Remes Liakov. So says the Zohar, this mice of Yaakov Avinu struggling with the Malach of Esav is the following hint. The Yovik Yishimai B'Kol Yoimei Shata. That when this Malach was struggling and wrestling with Yaakov Avinu, he was looking for what limb could I injure? Or what day do I have complete control over? And he wasn't able to find anything. And with all the limbs of Yaakov Avinu, every single day of the year, he wasn't able to find any day that he, the Samach Mem, should have complete control over. Except for the Gid Hanosha. And what day is the Gid Hanosha? Yoim Tesbav, that's Tisha B'Av. The day is Takef is Gazer Dina Ilona. That on that day there's a terrible amount of dinim hanging over the Jewish people. V'schar v'mikdash, the base of Mikdash was destroyed. Zohar says, "V'chol man ta'ochel b'tespach." Therefore, every single piece of reality that exists on the day of Tisha B'av is the Gid HaNoshim. V'chol man ta'ochel b'tespach says, "Is there anyone that eats anything on Tisha B'av?" Obviously, when halacha says you're not allowed to. Ochel Gid HaNoshim. That's called eating the Gid HaNoshim. Let's understand the deeper meaning of this is that the Zohar is telling us what the great darkness of Tisha B'av is. We don't even know the half of it. When we think Tisha B'av, what's Tisha B'av? The Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so okay, tragedies happened. It's much deeper than that. Says the Zohar, the day of Tisha B'av, which corresponds to the Gid HaNoshim, is the one day of the year where everything in reality is under the shlit of the Samach Men. Where there is nothing in this world that's not encloaked in darkness. Everything is under the shlit of the Samach Men. That's why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. That's why there's Tel B'Dina. Because the entire planet is now being consumed in darkness from the Samach Men. So that's horrible. I mean, that explains why we're sitting on the floor and everything. What's our avodah? What's our avodah? So listen to this. Like I mentioned this many times, nothing in Yiddishkeit is just about Yish, throw up your hands, it is what it is, it's done. Everything is about being Masakah. Even kinnis, I've mentioned the word kinnis is the same letters as tikkun. It's all about fixing. So what's the avodah when you're living in a world that literally every single stone, every single molecule of air is saturated with the Samach Men? So it's an amazing thing. The pasuk continues that when Yaakov Avinu was able to overtake the Malach of Esav despite the injury, so it says as follows. The pasuk says, "V'hu v'yizrach lo Hashemesh kasher over as penua." The Yaakov Avinu left that place of the battle, and he got to a place that's called Penuel. V'yizrach lo Hashemesh, and the sun came up, the sun rose. V'hu tzalei yerechai, and he began, and he was limping on his injury. So Zohar Kodesh says an amazing thing. Nowhere does it say a reference of Yaakov Avinu actually feeling the pain of the injury until this point of Yisrach lo Hashemesh, the sun shines, Kasher v'es Penuel, v'hu tzalei yerechai. It sounds like that the only time Yaakov Avinu was cognizant, was aware of the injury, and he felt the pain of it, and he was, leaning and limping on it, was only when the sun rose. What does that tell us about Tisha B'av? So the Zohar continues. Kedein iyu romes. This is the remes to what Tisha B'av, what the avodah of a Jew is on Tisha B'av. Ba'oid Yisrael b'galusa. When the Jewish people are in the depth of Galus, and the light of Mashiach is not shining brightly, when there's no v'yizrach lo Hashemesh, when the sun has not shone yet, and the Jewish people are in Galus, v'savlin ke'evin v'tzarin, and they're being soivel, they're bearing pain and difficulty, v'kama bishin, and much evil, then says the Zohar at that moment, they don't feel the pain of Tisha B'av. Only kadis nahar loin, only when v'yizrach lo Hashemesh, only when the sun rises. V'yeset loin Eicha, and there's some level of menucha, there's some level of nechama, there's some semblance, there's some piece of the neshama that feels the light of Mashiach, the light of Gula. Kedein yistakel, and then the Jewish people look at themselves. V'yechaven migar mayu, and then they're overwhelmed with the pain of Galus. V'kama bishin v'tzayin desavu, for all the difficulties that Klal Yisrael has went through individually and collectively. V'yitamu aleim. Only when it's v'yizrach lo Hashemesh, only when the sun rises, only when the light of Geul, the light of Mashiach, is actually entering into our lives, entering into the recesses of your neshama, only then is v'hu tzalei yerechai. But until that point, if the sun is not shining yet, if there's no light of Geul in your life, then Tisha B'av is meaningless. It's any other day. But the Zohar Kodesh is telling us an amazing thing. The only way to feel the pain of Tisha B'av, and when a person feels the pain of Tisha B'av, what that's coming from is what? Is v'yizrach lo Hashemesh. Is that in fact, the same day of Tisha B'av, which everything is encloaked in the darkness of the Samach Men, but the very fact that we feel the pain of Golus, and we're sitting on the floor, and we have what to cry about, and we're cognizant of it, and we feel a little bit of limping on our leg, on our limb, that itself is only as a result of Yisrach lo Hashemesh. But if there would be no light of Gula, then there would be an impossibility to mourn the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Everyone asks, well, that's a Deacon Mesach Kedushas Lev. Everyone asks, how is it possible to mourn the Beis Hamikdash if you never saw it? How is it possible to mourn Yerushalayim? We don't know what Yerushalayim is. Sion, we have no idea. We have no asagah what this is. We have no idea what this is. How can you mourn it? The answer is, you can't. The only Jew, and this is the truth, The only Jew that could be emes in pnimis, in a real way, be masavel over Yerushalayim and feel the pain of Churban Beis Hamikdash, is only a Jew that has tasted the light of Mashiach. Only when there's light of Mashiach, when there's a little bit of a ha'ara, v'yizrach la'yashemesh, when you're a Mashiach dikiyid, and part of your neshama is sensitive to the light of Mashiach, who was born on Tisha B'Av, the birth of Mashiach is what allows you to feel the pain of Golus. Now let me explain why. You see, how much another minute? Hashem Yisbarach is called Elokim Chaim, a living God, right? And Torah is called Torah's Chaim, the Torah of the living. What does that mean? Why is Hashem called Elokim Chaim? Why is Torah called Torah's Chaim? It's on a simple level, because God is the God of everything that's alive. And Torah is the direction that everything alive should follow. But it's much deeper than that. Elokim Chaim means that life itself is Elokus. What does it mean to be alive? What is life itself? Life itself is God. Life itself is godliness. Elokus is Chaim. Chaim is Torah. What is the opposite? Therefore, if Elokus, let me explain. If Elokus, if the Rebbeinu Shalom means life itself, then what is the opposite of the, what's Samach Mem? Death. What does it feel like when you're alive? Whenever Mamish Elokim Chaim, it's Gavaldik, everything's perfect. Everything is Gavaldik, there's no pain, everything's great. What does it mean when you're completely under the shlit of the Samach Mem? When you're the opposite of Elokim Chaim? What does that feel like? Also nothing. Also nothing. People are afraid of death, yeah? That's silly. Because what happens when a person dies? Nothing, right? What are you worried about? Misa, death, the opposite of Chaim, is also painless. It's also painless. But you know what the secret of pain is? The secret of pain is that even when a person is alive and they feel something missing in their life, when a Jew feels that there's something missing in life, when you feel there's something missing in your life, begashmis v'ruchnis, you know what that is? That is you living in a world that's under the jurisdiction of the Samach Mem, but that's called you proclaiming and you standing on your 2 feet and screaming with the top of your lungs that what? That gam choshech lo yachshech mimcha. That there's no such thing as choshech that doesn't have a Elokim Chaim within it. What does it feel like to be connected to Elokim Chaim, to a living God that's surrounded by darkness, that's surrounded by death? The result of that is to be alive, but to feel there's something missing with life. Pure godliness, when God is freed and the Shekhinah is out of Golus and everything is perfect and there's nothing missing in life. You're alive and there's nothing missing. When it's pure Choshech, then what is it? It's death, there's nothing there. But the secret of pain, the secret of tsaris is what? When a person is bitzar, when a Yid is bitzar, when a Jew feels that there's something missing in their life at that moment, that's an unbelievable moment of dvekus, because what you're experiencing in that moment is that you are makasha yourself. You are connecting yourself to the nitzitz of Elokus, to the spark of godliness that's contained in the darkness. This is what Tisha B'Av is. Tisha B'Av is a day of unbelievably profound dvekus. The mantra of Tisha B'Av, the proclamation of Tisha B'Av is that what? Is that it's true today is Gid HaNashim, which means that every single corner, every single stone, every single molecule is what is within the reshus and the darkness of the Samach Mem. It's all Choshech. But as Ma'aminim, B'nei Ma'aminim, the avoid of Tisha B'Av is for us to proclaim. Gam Choshech lo yachshev mimcha, that darkness itself does not stop the light of God. That the Rebbeinu Shalom himself is contained in that darkness. And the deepest way for us to be makasha ourselves to the light, to life, to Chaim, that's contained, that's being held back, that's not being allowed to express itself in full under the jurisdiction of Misa, is by being sensitive and recognizing that we're alive, but there's something missing. Therefore, every single krech that a Jew feels in this world, every single aspect of life, again, but gashmias u'ruchnias, that you feel that there's something missing in your life, Bani Chaim Ezaini, the Rebbeinu Shalom, Avodah, you name it, everything that's missing in your life, the day of Tisha B'Av is to think about it, and to realize, and to redefine that feeling, and to redefine for yourself that every single part, that whenever I feel that there's something missing in my life, what I'm really saying is that in the Choshech, in the darkness, in the death, in the Gid Hanosh of this world, there's Chaim there. And when you have chayim, when you have life, that's being encapsulated and covered by nisa, by death, the result is tsar. The result is pain. That's what pain is. Pain is something that's alive, but is being attacked by death. When a Jew feels that way, that's called dveikus. That's called expressing your amun and your belief that Elokim Chaim, the Rebbeinu Shalom, is alive in every stone, despite the fact that on the outside it looks like it's Gidanosh Day, and it looks like everything is in the Samach Mem's jurisdiction, and everything is death. See, the deepest test upon him is what? Is Olam Kimin Haganoye. The deepest test upon him is to go through a Tisha B'Av, and it's like a regular day, nothing different. But the biggest avoid of Tisha B'Av is what? Is to sense simply one thing and one thing only. There's something wrong with my life. There's something wrong with the world. There's something missing. The very air that we're breathing is a poison. Outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's a poison. And to be sensitive to that a little bit, to be margish, and to realize that everything you're missing in your own personal life with Parnasa, and Shidduchim, and children, and you name it, it's all coming from one single truth, from one single reality, which is the Rebbeinu Shalom is in Golas. And if Chaim Amitim, if the life of all reality, the Rebbeinu Shalom himself, Elokim Chaim, is under the prison of death itself, of the Chayshach, of the Samach Mem, then only people that are makusher to that life that's under the prison of death is going to feel alive but in terrible pain. The pain that a Jew feels throughout the course of the year, the pain that the world suffers from, is the light of Geula. It's the light of Mashiach. Only v'yizrach lo Hashem. Only when a Yid is able to be sensitive to that Elokus, to Elokim Chaim, Torah's Chaim, that's being weighed down by the opposite of Chaim, by the opposite of life, which is the Samach Mem. Only such a Yid is able to. That's called connecting yourself to the light of Geula, light of Mashiach. Our avodah for the rest of Tisha B'Av is to proclaim within ourselves in every single sentence is to say one thing and one thing only: Gam Chayshech Lo Yachshav. That darkness itself is not a separation between us and God. What looks as darkness, what looks as death, what looks at something that's completely under the jurisdiction of the Samach Mem, it's all Elokus. Ein Oid Milvadai. In the depth of Chayshech, in the depth of everything that's the opposite of Chaim, all there is Elokim Chaim. That's what Tisha B'Av is. Let me share with you one quick story. It's a weird one. The mice is like this. Reb Simcha Buddha from Shisk, the great tzaddik, so he was on his deathbed, and he called to his family, his chassidim, to come to give them savo, whatever. So chassidim come, and he says, "I want to give over to you the following story." So there was a mice of a person that was very wealthy, and obviously he had disposable income, as they say, and he decided that he's going to spend his money a little bit. He's going to buy a racehorse. Racehorse, very expensive, very expensive. So he buys a racehorse. But, he can't just have a racehorse. Now that he has a very expensive horse, he has to now have a very expensive barn. And now that he has an expensive stable, whatever, for the horse, now he has to have top of the notch security systems. And besides that, he also decides he's going to spend the money. He's going to hire a watchman. 24/7, the guy's going to sit there, going to watch his horse. Okay, it's nice. So the Gevir hires this guy. He's a shomer, fine. The first night of this guy's job, watching, so the Gevir is going to bed, whatever it is, but he can't sleep. He's thinking about his horse. He's nervous. So after an hour or so of tossing and turning, he goes down to the barn, to the stable, and he sees that the watchman is pacing back and forth. And he asks him, what do you, looks like you're thinking about, so what are you bothered by? So the watchman says, I'll tell you something, I'm bothered with the kash, and I can't bother with this. What's the kash? I said, well, they make donuts. What happens to the middle of the donut? What happens to it? Where does that go? So he was like, okay, fine, whatever, forget that. So he goes back to bed. Now he's thinking about the type of Shigna watchman he has. He's tossing and turning again. He goes back an hour later, and he asks the watchman, he sees also he's pacing. He says, now what are you thinking about? So think of another kasha. What's your kasha? Kasha is when you have a hammer and nail, right? And you bang in a nail into wood, what happens to the wood that was in that space? Where does that go? It's another kasha. After a couple hours, Vaiti goes back to bed, goes back, Vaiti the shomer's pacing. He says, what are you bothered with now? So he says, I'll tell you something, I'm bothered with another kasha. My kasha is like this. I hope you don't mind me saying, it seems that you're a well-to-do person, it's okay. He said, and you spent a lot of money buying, this racehorse. It's true. and you have the stable, top of the notch, top line, security system, and you even hired me to watch the horse. So I said, yes, what's your question? So my question is, what happened to the horse? It's a very, very deep mice. It's a very deep mice. You could have a stable. You could have top of the line security systems. You could have a show. You could have everything in the world. What happened to the horse? What happened to the horse? What's the horse? Beis HaMikdash. Where's Beis HaMikdash? Where's Elikus? You could raise your kids. You could send them to yeshiva. You could go yourself to yeshiva. You could be daf yomi. You could be a baki b'shas. There's no horse. It's all gullus. It's all gullus. It's all chaysha. And not having the horse, which is Beis HaMikdash, not having the Rebbeinu Shalom enlivening your life, not having Elokim Chayim as the center of your universe, then when there's no horse, then of course you're going to feel that lack of horse in everything in your life. What's happening when a Jew has a headache? When you have a headache, what's happening is tsar of the Shechina K'dosh. What you're feeling is there's no horse, there's no Beis HaMikdash. And that life that's imprisoned in darkness, which is the Golus of the Shechina K'dosh, it's making its way all the way to you and giving you a headache. What happens when you don't have Parnasa? It's not stam, a Jew doesn't have Parnasa. There's no such. What does it mean a Jew doesn't have Parnasa? It's one thing and one thing only. There's no horse. What does it mean a person doesn't have health? Everything that's missing in life, all tsar is tsar of the Shechina K'dosh. It's all coming from one truth. And the fact that a Jew can feel that pain, the fact that that your head hurts sometimes, that's a good thing. Tisha B'Av is celebrating tsaras, you understand? Tisha B'Av is celebrating the fact that you sometimes feel pain in the world. Because that's the best thing in the world. If you didn't feel any pain, it means that you're completely removed from the fact that there's no horse. But the very fact that you feel pain, the very fact that there is something missing in life, good. There is, because there really is something missing in the world. There's no horse. And because there's no horse, of course you're going to have a headache sometimes. Tisha B'Av is about redefining every tsar you've ever experienced in your life to realize one single truth. It's coming from one thing and one thing only. The tsar of the Shechina K'dosh. That's all. That's all there is. And the tsar of the Shechina comes from this single entity, this single reality of what? Of Elokim Chayim being trapped and being attacked by death. And when you have something that's alive, that's fully alive, and is being attacked by death, the result is tsar. And that is the tsar that we all feel. That is the tsar of the universe. I'm sorry, I'm going way off. I was only given 5 minutes, I know. I make up the schedule. This whole thing. Why is no one talking about the fact that with Corona we can't go to Eretz Yisrael? You know, it's an amazing thing. I shouldn't say this. I'm being recorded, honestly. But you know, when Corona, when dust settles, when all the dust settles, then you know what the pnimi is of a certain klip is about. So the world went through this. It's still going. I don't know. No one knows what this inyan was, what it still is. But at the end of the day, what's the pol yotzi of this? You have to wear a mask when you go on the airplane. Okay. You know what the big pol yotzi is? We can't go to Eretz Yisrael, and it says a whole. Why is no one screaming about this? There's no horse. You know what it means to have a hiskashus to Eretz Yisrael? You know what it means in this goof of Ifus the Mashiach? You know why people feel so shvach in the ruchnius these days? Libi Omerli, it's because of the lack of connection to Eretz Yisrael. Because that connection has been a little bit damaged because of this whole thing. We have to cry about this. We have to cry about tsaras. And redefine all of the tsaras that we've ever experienced as one thing and one thing only. There's no horse. And Hashem should help us. We should be zeicha to be the generation to finally get it. To finally realize that what really has been missing this whole time was not this, was not that, it was not X, Y, Z, it was not A to Z. It was one thing and one thing only, it's Beis HaMikdash. And the only type of yid that's able to sense that and to be sensitive to that is a yid that has a taste of Geula. And we all have a taste of Geula. We're Maminim b'nei Maminim. The Yisroch Hashem already happened a long time ago. Hashem should help us. We should be zeichet to makasher ourselves, the light of Mashiach, the light of Geula, and through that hiskashers to be zeichet to v'savu yishlam kedaboy, keroi, kedash, kedin. Should be zeichet that the tefillos of Eicha, the nigunim of Eicha, and everything should be oil l'rotzen l'fnei kisei hakovid, ma'yorach mishamayim, manos, and the whole bria. Should be zeichet to get out of goals, gam choshet l'yashim l'chav b'yas gold tzedek, and everything remain along.
לא יזכרו חריסו, ותראה פילויים מברכים לו. ראה אדוני יסוני, כי גילויים. יודוי פורס צורה, כל מחמודךו. כי לא עשו גויים בו מקדושו, אשר ציוויסו לא יבואו בכל לו. כל המוחנן הולכים מבקשים לכם, נוסנו מחמדיהם, ויועיל יושיב לכם. ראה אדוני ביביתו, כי יויסי זוי לילו. לא יעליכם, הביטורו, אם יש מחי כמחוי בי, אשר אוהלה לי. אשר אוהגו אדוני, ויואי מחרוי נבוי. ממורוי שלח אש בעצמו ישראל, וירדנו. פורס רשס לרגלי ישיבני אחור, ניסונני שוממו כל היום ודובו. נזכר אל בשומעי בידו, הסתורגו עלו הצבורים של קודשי. ניסונני אדוני בידי לא יחלקו. סילוך אבירי אדוני בקרבי, קורא לי מויה לשבור בחורוי. גס תורך אדוני לפסולת בסיבודו. הלילה אני בידיו. איני ירד מים, ירחק ממני, מנחם משיב נפשי. היו בוני שוממים, כי קובעי מוריסי, שימונו חלומי. הורו בחויבים, סויסאי ובחוריי, הולכו בשבי. קורסי למאווי, הם מורימוני, חיינאי וזקנאי, בו ירקבו. כי ביקשו איכל לומוי, ויושיבו את נפשם. ראה אדוני כי צר לי, מיי חומר מורו, נפח ליבי בקרבי, כי מורוי מוריסי. מחוץ שכלו חרב, הרחץ כמופס, שובעו כי לנחון. אין מנחם לי, לא יווי שמורו סיסוסו, כי עתו סיסו. אביזו ינקורוסו ביו קומויני, תבואי חורוסו לפונךו, ויועיל אלומוי, כאשר אללתו ויבוא ישוי. יבואי סנחויסאי בידבוי. איכו יועיל ויבואי, אדוני אסבסיון, השליך משמיים ארץ, תפארת ישראל. לא זכר אדוני נבוא ויועיל נבואי, תפילה אדוני ולא יחומה. Eis kol me'ois Yaakov, horas v'yavrosoi, v'bsirei vas Yehudoi ki alores, l'ilel mamlocho v'sorecho, godam v'choriyah, kol keren Yisrael, Eishiv al-chor, yiminoi v'bnei oyei, vayivar v'Yaakov ki yesh le'avo, achlos avim. Dorach ashdoi ki oyeh, zitzal v'yiminoi kitzor, v'yaroi kol ha'chamadei v'yoyo b'asiyoi, shofach go'er yishlavosoi. Hoyo Adonai ki oyeh v'la Yisrael, v'la kol ha'kneseo, shiches mitzoro. V'yere b'masiyudo, tamiyo v'aniyo. Mayachmo es kagam sugoi, shiches mayadoi. Shikach Adonai b'tzion v'b'shavos, v'yinat b'zamavoi melech b'toyei. Zonach Adonai mizbechoi nir mikdoshoi, yizkir v'yadoyei v'choi mois, armenoi serokoil. Yosinu b'beis Adonai ki yoy v'toyei. Koshav Adonai le'ashris chemaz b'asiyoi, Notoko le'shiv yadoi, v'baleya, v'yamel chel v'choymo, yachtovu lo, v'zum lo, tohu b'oretz yoreho, Ibar Shiva Merifel, Malkof Israel, Bagoyim in Torah, Gamliel, Matzuchazoi, Meadoinoi, Yeshivu Lores, Music Nemasion, Helu of Arishon, Hogirus Akim, Holy to Lores Rishon, Sisulois Rusholoi, Kolubat Nois, Inai, Homar Mirumeai, Ishbach Lores Kiveti, Hashem Vasami, Beate Boilel Bionei, Virchoi Lois Kiryom, Limai Son Miru, Aye, Gagoyoyin, Visas from Kekolol, the Torvoisir, Bisha Peklam Shon, Alchegi, my son, Moide, Moadamelo. Habas Yerushalayim, Hoash velo panachamech, Visulas Masiyoy, Higadol Kayom, Shivrech Mirpolo, Nibiai, Chozulo Shav V'Sofel, V'Lagilo Lavinech, Leoshir Shivusei, Vayadezulo, Vasois Shav Umaduchim, Sav Kualayim Kapayim Kolei Redere, Shariku Vayonim Roishom, Alba Sirushaloi, Hazoi Soi, Sheyomiru Kililasioifi, Hasoi Slocholores, Batsulayim Bihem Koloivayim, Shariku Vayachar Kushein, Aviru Bilodu, Avzeayom Shekibinu Matzoroinu, Aso Adoino Yasher Samo. Vitzahem no soy asher tzivoki mekedem, horas v'lo etomo. Vaisama kolai choyev, eirim v'keren zodoyev. So achlibo meladoinoi, koimas vasiyoin. Hoi ridi chanach al dimoy momolaylo, al titini fugas lo, al tidoi vasenei. Kumi roini malai. Leroy Jashmurois, Shivri Chamayim Libei, Loi Chav Meadoinoi, Si Elo Kabar, Al Never Shalayim, Vadu Bimiro, Veroy Shachutzois, Rei Adoinoi Biabitol, Imi Olautokoi, Imdoi Chaldo Noshim, Piriom, Leitim Buchim, Imi Horei, Bimikdash Adonoi, Koi Binavi. Shafuloret Utsois Nar Vizokein, Visulis Hayvachorai, Nambulo Vechorem, Horakdom Yoima Vechot, Olachdo, Loichomodo, Tikro, Leoima Moyim, Bigurai, Misovim, Eloi Hoyo, Vioima Pandinoi, Poli Visori, Shekipati Viribisi, Oim Pichilo, Ani Hageveroni, Bishei Vedebrosoi, Oisinoa, Vayela, Oishet Vilayor, Advioshu, Yafai Chiodoi, Kolayoim, Vilo Visori Viori, Shiva Rasmoisoi, Kodolai, Vayaka, Roishuslo, Nakashak, Kimoy Shivani, Kimese Oilo, Godar Bahadi, Viloyesei, Viloshi, Gam Ki Ezak Vashomeya Sosa, Vilosi, Godar Dirachai Vigosis, Yisilosa Ibo, Doi Gore Huli, Arim Misorim, Dirachai Sorem, Vaivashufei, Nisamani Shonem. Dora Gashoy Matimeni, Kamadoro Lafeni, Hey Bibi Soy, Bene Ashbosoy, Oisis Khoil Kholami, Kinosom, Olayoy, Isviani Vamirori, Mirmanivano, Vaya Grace Mechot Sot Shinoi, Irvishani Boefer, Vatizna Misholoy, Navshi, Noshi. Voy maro vanitzchim, v'soy chalti me'adoinoi, zechroni umrudi lano moroish, zochor tizkor, v'soshoy acholai nafshi. Zois, Oshir Alibi, Algenoichil, Chasei Adonai, Kiloi Sodu, Kiloi Cholu, Rachalo, Kadoshim Abikorim, Rabo, Ebuzaser, Elki Adonai, Omro Nafshi, Alkenoi Chiloi, Toiv Adonai, Lekoivo, Benefesh, Toiv Yachil B'Zullah, Yisroa Adonai, Toiv Lageber Kisol B'Nuro, Yeshe B'Davidai, Kinot Al-Olo, Yitem Be'Alvar B'Yula Yeshivah, Yitem L'Makeyu, L'Yisrach B'Chevah, Kilo Yisnach L'Olam Adonai, Kivoigo V'Richam V'Rov Asodom, Kilo Inam Yilivoy, Hayageh V'Leish, L'Rakeh Tachas V'Chlo, Kol Asireyot, Leatois Mishpako V'Neged V'Yoyoy, Leabeis Odom V'Rivoy, Adonai Lo'Ro, Mizer Omar Batehi, Adonai Lo'Timo, Mipi Yoyoy Lo'Sitzei, Orois V'Yatoy, Mayisoyne Odom Choy, Yeber Adato, Nachlisod Rachenu V'Nachoyno, V'Noshuvo Ad Adonai, Nisol V'Momeino Kapoyim, Elel Vashomoyim, Nachnu Boshanu Morinu, Atoy Sosovno, Sakoi Sovo Avatir Defeinu, Orak Doloi Chomoto, Sakoi Sovo Non Lo, Me'avor Tevilo, Sichi Umois, Nisimeinu V'Kervamim, Otzu Oleinu, Inem Koloyeveinu, Tachat Ovakas, Oyolonu Ashish Yashover, Hakemayim Tiradim, Hashem V'Rasamim, Eidim Niro, V'Loisim Min Avugois, Ajashir V'Yever, Adonai Mishamoyim, Eini Yodol Nafshi, V'Kom V'Noisim Kili, Soitzoduni, Kativor V'Vayino, Somnisu Babor Chayoy, Vayadu Eben Izbi, Tafumay Maroishi, Amardi Nikordi, Horosi Shimcho Adonai, Vivor Tachiroi, Koili Shamoyo, Altale Mosnecho, Veraposi L'Shamosi, Korav Yone Broeko, Omar Tatizo, Rav Adonai, Vivin Ashi Vatachayoi, Rois Adonai Abososi, Shavto Mishpati, Rois Avanimaso, Omar Shiloiso, Shavado Merboson Adonai, Omar Shiloiso, Sivsei Komai Neguna, Olai Bolayoi, Shifto Mikimaso Mabito, Ani Manginaso, Shoshiloi Kilmul, Adonai Kimasridehem, Tite Lohem Kinasle, Havosicho Lohem, Tirdoi Piavis Ashmide, Vitata Shmiadoi, Eicha Yuamzo, Vishne Akesenatoi, Tishapech Noavne Kodesh, Virosh Lobuzois, Vinei Tzilyoina Ikorim, Apsuloim Papos, Eicha Neshivul Nivlei Chedes, Vasei Neyotzeh, Gam Talim Achol Sushan, Eini Kuburehem, Vasamil Yazor, Kayenim Amidmor, Tovakishon Yenei, El Tikroi Vatzomor, Oilolin Shalulechem, Oireis Imorem, Oichilim Madamim, Noshamu, Aluzois, Oemlunim Aleisolo, Tiviku Ashpatois, Vayikal Oimasamim, Mechata Shiroi, Apukok Moiroka, Lekolubo Yodoim, Zakun Isireo Mishelek, Zaku Mecholo, Odu Etzem Pnimim, Sabir Yisrosom, Hoshach Mishel Chor Torom, Loidikiru Bachutzoi, Sofa Loirom Alatom, Yovesh Oyochoes, Toivim Oyu Chalechenem, Mechaleiro, Shein Yozum Duchorim, Vitru Voice Sodoi, Yideh, Noshim Rachamonios, Vishilu Yadeh, Oyu Levarois Lavoi, Vishem Bevasamim, Kilo Adonai Eschamasoi, Shofar Haroinapoi, Vayatzes B'tzioi, Vatoi Vayosoi Zoizel, Lo Yeminu Achieres, Kol Shuvei Sever, Ki Yavoi Tzaryoyim, Visharei Yerushalayim, Mechatois Tvieo, Avoinois Koyaneo, Hashem Nevikivo, Tam Tzadikim, No, Ivri Machutzois, Nikoyalu Vadom, Vilo Yuchlu, Yigilu, Yelmushehem, Suru Tamei Karulam, Suru Hatigo, Inatu Gano, Aviru Lagoyim, Loyoisifu Lagor, Hine Adonai Shilukam, Loyoisif Leavitam, Hine Choyani Loinaso, Uskini Loichanono, Oideinu Tichlanoineinu, Elezosenu Hovel, Vitziviosenu Tivinu, Elgoi Loyoshia, Sadutiodeinu, Milech Ezbeloi Voiseinu, Korakitzeinu, Maluyameinu, Kitzeinu, Kalim Ayuroi Defeinu, Minishrei Shamotim, Aleorim Dilokudu, Babinvor Orgulodu, Ruach Apeinu, Mishiach Adonai, Yilgon Ishlisoiso, Asher Amarnu, Vitziloi Nifevagoyim, Sisim Chivasedoi, Yosheves Vieretzus, Gamolai Tavorgois, Tishkiri Sisori, Tamabonech Vasinoi, Loyosif Leagloisei, Bochara Boinech Vasedoi, Hilot Shutoisoi, Dilchor Adonai Yolonu, Havitor Zeloseinu, Nachloseinu Nevlolitorim, Boteinu Lachlim, Yisomim Hoinu Beino, Imoiseinu Yamonois, Meimeinu V'chesov Shosinu, Eitzeinu V'meravoinu, Al Saboreinu V'zavnu Yoganu V'choi, Ulachonu, Mitzrayim Osamnon, Ashur L'tzvoyalo, Avoseinu Chotumeinu, V'anachnu, Avonesehem Sovonu, Avodim Ashkuvonu, Koirei, Imiyodim, V'nafsheinu Novilachmeinu, V'penei Kanimor, Oireinu Kisanu Nichmoru, V'penei Zalapusro, Noshim V'tzioninu, V'suloi Skornei Udo, Sorim Yodom Nisu, V'nei Tekenim, Oinatoru, Bachurim Techoyim Naso, Ulorim Oitzkosho, Zekenim Mishar Shavosu, Achurim Viginoso, Shovas Misois Limeinu, Nefaliem El Nechoyleinu, Nafilot Teres Ushenu, Oinolonu Gichoto, Alzeh, Hayot Avelimeinu, Aleluia, Choshuveneinu, Al Harti Oishe Shomein, Shuolim, Atala Doinoi Elokeshe, Yisarol Dorogor, Lomogon Etzach Nishomeinu, Hazeinu Yoreinu, Hashireinu Adonai,
Shemesh
much, but there was just one thing I want to say. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens at a matzav like this. So 90%, 98% of the chaver is like mamish feeling it. There's always that 2% that is like going along, you know what I mean? But it's not sinking in. So I'll give you a skula. And it's not just like a skula. This happens to be something. Not that I'm one of these people, but in the secret societies of tzaddikim, this is a trick of the trade that they do a lot. They do a lot, and it's specifically appropriate to Tisha B'av, which is by the tzaddikim. It's a well-known thing that they would have this kavanah hundreds of times a day, as many times as possible, to think and makabel on yourself that I want to be a merkava for the Shekhinah Kodesh, that I want to be a vehicle to allow the Rebbeinu Shalom to express himself in this world. Instead of davening mincha, where I am davening mincha, I am allowing the Rebbeinu Shalom to daven mincha through me, whatever that means. And the tzaddikim, it goes way back. Rebbe Melech, for example, there was a ma'aseh that there was a bacher that once came to him for a bracha stam. He was online, and the Rebbe Melech stood up for this bacher. He said, "Why? He was like a regular kid." He said, "The Rebbe Melech said, with this bacher, I could see on him that this is a kavanah that he thinks about all the time, that he should be a merkava, chariot for the Rebbeinu Shalom." That's what Tisha B'av is about, Chaver. Tisha B'av is about singing nigunim and davening, not for you. It's not for you. Tisha B'av is a day where tefillah, it's not a day of tefillah. Sasam tefillah, tefillahs are closed. So if we're not davening, who's davening on Tisha B'av? There needs to be someone davening. Rebbeinu Shalom is davening. But he doesn't have a mouth, doesn't have a voice like that. So all of us together on planet Earth are makabeling ourselves to be merkava for the Rebbeinu Shalom. But even if you don't feel it in particular, you're going through the motions, you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the Rebbeinu Shalom. Well, Hashem should look at our generation. The pasuk says, "Bikshu es Hashem Elokeim es David Malkam." At the time Mashiach is going to come is when the Jewish people collectively decide to search for God and search for David HaMelech. What does it mean to search for David HaMelech? Searching for God, we think we know. Search for David HaMelech was a merkava. David HaMelech, his entire life was living in that way of all I am is a vehicle to allow Hashem to pulsate in the world, that Hashem should reveal himself through me, even if I have no chelik in it at all. You know, the Yisrael Moshe used to say, that Rebbeinu Shalom, I daven for Mashiach should come. And even if I don't get to see it, let Mashiach come through me, even if I don't see it. And even if I don't get to see the next world, Rebbeinu Shalom, the Yisrael Moshe used to say, even if I'm going to be in all the way, Sha'ol Tachtiyos, for all eternity, Mashiach should come. And I should have a chelik in it, even if I don't experience it myself. That's what Jew sings on Tisha B'av. I should be like to search for David HaMelech.
Ki Lashem, Hallelujah. Ki Lashem, Hallelujah.
Simcha? That's the first one.
Yeah.
Just the Heilige Rebbe. I was in Camp Simcha, so I was schmoozing with Rabbi Feiner, and he said that a few years back, Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky came to the camp, the Rosh Hashiva, and they had a time where the counselors and the staff members could meet with the Rosh Hashiva. So one of the counselors told Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, he said, there's concerts during the 9 days, they're playing music all over the place, it's positive energy, everyone's dancing. So he said, what's the deal with that? So Rav Shiva said, what do you mean? That's fine. That's okay. You don't have to go through all the heterim for why these kids are allowed to hear that. Somebody told me one of the heterim is medically. Medically. When the music is playing, it somehow, But the counselors turned to the Rosh Hashiva and he said, yeah, but I don't feel the 9 days. So Rosh Hashiva looked at him and said, seriously? Look around. The whole Messias of Camp Simcha is the 9 days. You don't feel the 9 days? By not listening to music, you'll feel the 9 days. The fact that you work here is the 9 days. So the Rosh Hashiva told him. Maybe we could already, at this point in our history, after a Holocaust and after Meron and after Surfside and after COVID, maybe the Rosh Hashiva could tell us too, just look around, you get it. The whole Metzias is the 9 days. What are we sitting around on the floor singing the Gordon Tzazavan? Like the Rebbe said, it's only his scholars that maybe we're connected to the Iris. So that's my message, just look around. That's all. Everybody knows somebody that's broken, everyone knows somebody that has a broken home, that has emotional health issues, maybe everybody knows somebody that was suicidal at this point in history. It could be. I remember when I was in school, I'm making myself sound like an old man, but when I was in school, I remember it was a chiddush if somebody was a twin, right? I don't think it's a chiddush anymore if somebody knows somebody who was suicidal. So hopefully we can be part of life. The avoid the tzazama with the chevra. Schlep in the earth, Mashiach.
Anything that see on Yeshua is strong. You can see it connected up and mouth. Tishabah. Anything that see on is Yeshua. That's where Yeshua's coming.
Yani
Amen.
But what the Rebbe said, Yismach Lev, when will we have the Simcha, the real Simcha? When we're Mavak Hashem, even when we're sitting on the floor in Pittsburgh searching for Hashem, forgot the pasuk. No, there was a pasuk. They have a diamond there. We have a Maisa. Here we are in Mavaksha. That's what we're looking for. The Rebbe said the whole time, really, even when you're looking for a piece, even when you're looking for Advil, you're looking for the Eicha. So we're all looking for the Eicha. So hopefully, Al Yidei, the Chavetz Azam being Mavaksha Hashem, will come to Yismach Lev. Says Hashem. If you know the niggun, sing along. If you don't know it, you'll know it quickly. Yismach Lev, Mavaksha Hashem, Yismach Lev, Mavaksha Hashem, Yismach Lev, Mavaksha Hashem, Yismach Lev, Mavaksha
Yeah.
Sums up emes what our avodah is on Tisha B'Av, and between friends, I think what I want like the shul to be. You know what I mean? It's nice like this. You know, it was known the Baal Shem Tov that he would go on these trips, go on these random trips. He would usually handpick which ones to go on which particular trip. He would get his talmidim, they would go into the wagon, and there wouldn't be a driver. Baal Shem Tov would whisper something in the ears of the horses. That's how they would go. They would find their way to wherever they're supposed to go. So it was one of those trips, and they go. I mean, they don't know where they're going, but they go, and they end up in some shtetl somewhere else. And by the time they arrived there, it was already a little bit late in the afternoon. It was time for mincha. So, you know, none of them are from there, but they get out, and they see, like all the Jews are going in one direction. So they figure it's going to mincha, so they follow the crowd. So they get to the shul. It's a big, nice shul, and they open the doors to meet them. They open the door. And then there's the hallway, and then from the hallway you get into the main sanctuary, the shul itself, and so that's where all the Jews are. They're davening mincha. So to meet them, they open the door, go through the hallway, get into the main shul. But they notice the Baal Shem Tov is staying in the hallway. They say no, he's staying where he is. He's davening in the hallway. So they go through mincha like that. To meet them are very taken aback. Maybe there's some issue with the shul, something. And not only that, but there's some people in the shtetl that have heard Baal Shem, and you know, word spread that the tzaddik is here and he's coming in the shul, so they got all nervous. So they come over to Baal Shem after davening and say, Rebbe, you know, if there's anything that, as a kehillah we have to work, and let us know, we'll fix it, whatever. Baal Shem said, no, chas v'shalom, it's not that. But you have a very chashuv hallway. Very chashuv hallway. I want to daven the hallway. So why? So he said, you know, in your town, he said, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember, but some years ago, there was the water carrier of the town, Moshe the water carrier, and it was a simple pashli gig. And there was one particular winter morning, and every morning this is what he would do. He would go to the well, and he would run back and forth to everyone's houses and give them the water that they needed that day. That was the water carrier. So there was one particular winter morning. It was very, very cold, very windy, very snowy, and he was going slower than usual because he was just fighting against the wind and so on, the elements. And so by the time he gets to the final house, he asks the person there. He says, it's been such a long morning. I feel like it's later than usual. What time is it? I don't have a watch. So the guy says it's 8:45, whatever it is. So he's like, I haven't davened like the shul. So he quickly does the best he can to get to shul. Well, Shent is saying by the time he gets to Shacharitz, it's already very late, and the whole shul is packed with everyone there. So he's embarrassed to go in or whatever. So he's davening the hallway. So he goes in the hallway. There's cracks. He feels bad about his whole life that he's stuck like this. Everything that was wrong in his life is leading to this moment of him being stuck davening the hallway. So down like this, and then so he takes out his Talisman's phone, and he realizes that it was so cold, it was so snowy that his pair of gloves, one of the gloves, part of the glove, froze to his hand. So what am I supposed to? He doesn't know whatever. Technically, he gets a feeling like wearing a glove, but he doesn't know anything. So he's like, what am I supposed to do? So he starts trying to pull it off. It's hurting, whatever. So he's very, very carefully. He takes a scissor. Basically, he destroys his glove, and he even, cuts himself a little bit, and he's bleeding a little bit. So Shanta said that in that moment, those two things that this year did, give a krechs and give a little bit blood, Shno and Shemai, their mom is dancing for Mishach. So Shanta said, for years, I was waiting for the right moment in Shemai, whatever, I should be Eicha to daven in the same spot that this Moshe water carried out. That's what Tisha B'Av is, especially in Toshin Pei Aleph. The Rosh wants just two things: krechs and some blood. What do I mean by blood? Not literal. Serious nefesh. A little krechs. Like, what has become of him? What has become of us? Like, where are we going? That a little bit blood. And then when you have those two ingredients, the Rebbeinu Shalom is dancing. Baal Shem Tov would want to daven where you're davening. And I believe that Lev Nefesh, I believe that Rebbeinu Shalom is looking down on us, Baal Shem is looking down on us, he say, look at these guys. Look at these guys. I don't even know what time it is, but it's probably, late, whatever it is. And they could be going home, it's going to be a long fast tomorrow, they could be going to sleep. They want to sing, they want to feel something, a little blood, a little krechs. The Rebbeinu Shalom is mamish b'simcha right now, even though the Storm Tifkanash, the Rebbeinu Shalom is crying on Tisha B'Av, but in the crying there's laughter too. He looks down, he says, even like this. Mamish a crazy world. You should be zeicha to be like Moshe the water carrier, You go to Shacharis even if you're late, you know what I'm saying? And even if you're in the hallway, you daven. Not this hallway, you come inside, you daven, And you give a krechs, a little bit of blood, and Baal Shem Tov would be envious to daven in your spot. To have that revelation, we should see how much nachas we give the Rebbeinu Shalom, how much time we give to the Golas. And with that itself is the biggest nachama. It's the biggest nachama.
I feel like we should sing a nigga with no words. It's the high. Sometimes somebody says how's Golas? No words. There's no words to describe.
Light.
Are you going to go to Shema?
Whatever knows.